Hey everyone, welcome to Ex-Fundie Diaries. My name is Elly, my pronouns are she, her, and today I want to share another part of my faith deconstruction story with you. But before I do, I would just like to say thank you so much to everyone who has been leaving such kind comments. When I started this channel, one of my main motivations was to hopefully help people feel less alone. It feels like such an honor that some of you have connected with my story in that way, and your comments make me feel less alone. So many things that you all have been saying have been so affirming to me. I really appreciate you watching my videos. In my first faith deconstruction video, I shared how I got married very young, and my husband and I chose a church to start attending together. And the church that we chose was a conservative, evangelical, fundamentalist Christian church, and it leaned towards the charismatic tradition. There were some charismatic components to it. During this time, I was desperate for a mentor. I was not in a place where I felt comfortable making decisions for my own life. The way that I had been indoctrinated growing up, I got the sense that I always needed to have either my parents telling me what to do or some kind of spiritual mentor in the Christian community telling me what to do. I've seen Joe Lumen talk about this in a way that really resonated with me. Evangelical adults can act like children because it's all about submitting to the authority above you. So I volunteered at their yearly women's conference. I was just starting to question my faith, and it was there that I started to get to know one of the speakers at the women's conference. I think her official title may have been Women's Ministry Director. I'm gonna call her Bridget because I don't want to use her real name. I'd like to protect her privacy. She led a women's Bible study at the church, and I started going to that. And we started developing a pretty close relationship. Pretty much every night after Bible study, she and I would talk together in the parking lot for like a good hour. She said things to me like, "I'm so glad that you're asking all of these questions. I could talk to you forever." And we really connect and we really get each other. And she was reading a lot of the same progressive Christian blogs that I was. In fact, she gifted me Jesus Feminist by Sarah Bessey. And she seemed so passionate about talking to me about these topics. So we were starting to get coffee together to talk further. I was telling her that I was getting to the place where I didn't want to go to a church that wouldn't let gay people serve or be in leadership. And she said, "Well, I understand, but I really hope that you'll keep coming to this Bible study because your questions are so good for the women there because it's making them think outside of what they've always believed." So my husband and I stopped going to church on Sundays, but I continued on with the Bible study. And it was the kind of thing where I was being triggered by every other word or every other phrase. I was continuing to have a lot of anxiety and a lot of trauma responses. This was all part of my PTSD and my religious trauma. So one night in April, I went up to her after Bible study, and her response was very jarring. Up until that point, she had been a very safe person for me. Not only was it shocking because I wasn't expecting that from her, but it was also really disappointing because I had shared the kind of spiritual abuse that my dad had inflicted on me and my family, and she ended up doing the same thing. April 29th, 2015. Tonight after Bible study was over, I walked up to Bridget and she asked me how I was doing. And I told her the last few weeks have been really tough, and I've been trying to climb out of the fog of depression and despair. I told her that God feels so far away, and I wonder if he was ever real. I poured out my heart, explaining how I struggle so much with, as cliche as it sounds, all of the pain and suffering in the world. And where is God? And who even is God? Bridget had asked me if I was willing to be creature and not creator. If I was willing to let God be God and trust him without knowing all the answers. And she said that I was putting a condition on God, that I was demanding that he show me himself before I committed myself to him. Bridget started to get really passionate and point down at me. I felt so hurt because I thought she was mad at me and disappointed in me. I have a very clear memory of what she was doing, and I don't want to reenact it for you on camera, so I'm just going to describe it. She was raising her voice, she was pointing at me repeatedly, and she was moving her body in an aggressive way into my space while she was pointing at me and basically yelling scripture. She said, "God says to you, where were you when I formed the earth?" And I didn't realize it at the time, but she was quoting the book of Job, in which Job and God have a conversation, and Job is doubting because of all the shitty things that God is letting Satan do to him, and that's God's response. Bridget said a few times she wanted me to know that she wasn't angry with me, and that she didn't mean to direct her anger at me. She said she was so pissed at the enemy, she could hardly contain herself. So the enemy is Satan, in case you were wondering. And she didn't mean that metaphorically, she meant it very literally. She said it was because she knows who I am and the potential I have in me, and that the enemy is trying to steal that and keep me in my own personal hell on earth. She also said it was because of her gift of prophecy. This was also super triggering for me because my dad also said he had the gift of prophecy. This was like a direct repeat of my past trauma from someone that I was not expecting it from. She talked about the Garden of Eden and how whether the snake with Adam and Eve was allegory or not, that was the first time humans wanted to be God. She said that I am intelligent and intellectual, and that she feels that that is a roadblock for me. She had been encouraging my questions and encouraging my critical thinking. And then out of the blue, or at least it felt to me like out of the blue, she was saying the exact opposite. How is that okay as a church leader to tell people that are looking to you for guidance, you just need to trust God? It doesn't matter if you look at the Bible and you see teachings that are harming others or teachings that are harming you. None of that matters. What matters is you trusting unconditionally. You need to ignore your brain and your intuition and the new things that you're learning about the world, and you need to lock those away and just trust God. Bridget said, I need to decide that I can live without having all the answers on how God moves and why he does or doesn't do what he does or doesn't do. I said that I understand what she's saying, but it just seems like a dirty trick that God would create us with questions and then say we can't have all the answers. And I agree with my past self about that. I still feel that way. Bridget said that the problem is, I have all my answers already. Now it's simply my decision. She said she was confident that she would see me in heaven. I prayed the prayer, that was my fire safe, and no one can ever snatch me out of God's hand. She said that I am in the palm of his hand no matter how far I run, so she wasn't worried about me. Looking back now, that feels really condescending. And before I started deconstructing, I said the same condescending bullshit to other people. I really regret doing that because being on the other side of it feels awful. So by this time it was getting late. I was a complete emotional mess. I was crying and there was probably snot everywhere. And two other women had joined us to pray for me, laying hands on me and praying for me in that very intense, overwhelming, charismatic way. And one of the women said she felt shooting pains in her leg, like the devil was attacking her and trying to keep her from praying. Bridget asked God to purge all of the lies out of the very depths of my belly. I feel like I've said the word triggering way too much in this video, but I don't know how else to say it. May 27th, 2015. It has been so hard to sit under Bridget's teaching lately. I am very glad tonight is the last night of Bible study for the summer. I started to have another panic attack tonight because everything she was saying was pointing to the way she yelled scripture at me a month ago, and she can't even see it. I really thought she had my back, and now I'm not sure she cares about me as much as I thought. Perhaps our relationship was mostly based on me seeking her out, and I was just too desperate for a mentor to realize. So when that Bible study ended, I was done going to that church in any capacity. About a year after the incident, I finally sent her an email explaining that I was hurt, and she apologized. She said that it was very late that night and she had had some tough things in her personal life going on, and I definitely have empathy for that. I can only imagine how much pressure is on you as a church leader to be everything for everyone in your church, and I totally understand going through a tough time, but we really weren't able to reconnect. We went to lunch one time after she apologized, and it was awkward. She didn't ask me anything about faith or spirituality, so I think she had kind of gotten the picture that I was on a different path than she was. But what I can see now is that Bridget was willing to deconstruct with me, but only up to a certain point, and she wouldn't let me go past a certain point. And here's the thing, for me, I totally respect Christians who deconstruct and then decide to hold on to their faith in some way. As long as you are dismantling the harmful aspects of what you were taught to believe, and you're not forcing your beliefs on others, and you're not causing harm to others because of your faith, then I think that's great. If your faith gives you strength and inspires you to make the world a better place and to become a better person. But I wasn't able to do that because of my spiritual trauma. And Bridget not supporting me in that really hurt me. And so I'm sharing this story, number one, for those who may have gone through a similar thing. If someone has treated you that way, I am so sorry. It's really painful and it's really wrong, and I empathize with you so much. And the other reason I'm sharing this story is for Christians who are deconstructing and yet wanting to hold on to their faith. Because I hope that while you do that, you will try to be gentle and understanding to those of us who have chosen to leave Christianity altogether, because it is often full of pain and trauma. I think that Miss Charlotte said it best on Twitter. There is no one right way to deconstruct. The point is to find what serves you best. Sometimes that means becoming a different type of Christian, sometimes it means rejecting religion altogether, and sometimes it means switching to a completely different faith. Let's be kind to each other and respect our different stories and the different paths that we take without causing each other more harm. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.